Hey, what's up everyone? Alright, so we are about to install set number 1 of 6 of the limited edition carbon fiber sets from us, Palm Customs. So this is pretty simple actually. I'm going to show you how to take all this off right here, take the stock piece off, put the new carbon fiber ones in, which are literally like 20% the weight of the stock ones, so it's pretty cool. That's pretty much it. You might see me sweat a lot here, but that's just because hey, I'm in Florida and it's like 100 degrees out right now. So I say let's just go ahead and get into it. All right.
All right, guys, as you can see here, we've got the tools that we're going to need to do this. Now, we've got both types of Phillips heads. We've got a 10 millimeter, and you can use a ratchet or a socket. And then we've got the T25 bit. I recommend using some kind of drill with the bit instead of trying to do it by hand. Makes life a lot easier. Now, you'll see here that the front wheels are not turned. That's because I'm stupid or lazy or a little bit of both. But I went ahead and did it anyways. You can do it without turning the wheel. Does it make life a little easier? Sure, it can, especially have it turned one way and then you get to the other side to do it and it causes problems. So as you can see here, there's actually, they look like nuts and bolts. You're really only loosening those nuts. That front piece will actually slide out towards you. So you don't need to actually take those nuts all the way off. Now, that being said, when you're in there, you'll see the T25 little screw that's holding the actual fin in place on top. You do not need to mess with that right now. Once you get the actual entire panel off, you'll be able to reach that a lot easier. So don't try and reach in there and do it by hand or anything like that. There's absolutely no need for that. Now, what you see me doing right here, I'm taking the nuts off, but that is a very confined area. I would recommend either using some kind of shorty or using some kind of ratcheting wrench, which is what I'm using right there. You won't get a lot of travel out of it, so that's why I would not recommend any kind of box or anything like that. That's gonna be a real pain to kind of keep loosening and then moving and all that. And then just a couple quick suggestions or tips. I've seen some people when they go to do this, they want to remove the front tire. There's actually no need for that, so I wouldn't recommend it. There's no need to do that to take this portion off. Also, I would recommend using some kind of painter's tape or something like that, especially if you've never done this before. Put it on the bottom part of that sill before you go too much farther, before you take the thing off. It is a little unwieldy, especially when you have to have the door open to take it off. And then that's just a good habit, good thing to do if you're not used to this and you don't want to scratch it. All right, so this part right here, it's basically just a screw in the back, and you're just gonna unscrew that screw. I believe there's just the one back there. You'll do that, and that's pretty much all there's to say about that. Is it a weird angle? But with the right tool, especially if you have like a long shank Phillips head, skinny, it's gonna do perfect. I mean, that's all you're gonna need. Now, this portion right here, we're gonna take the 10 millimeter bolts off the bottom of the sill. Now, I'm obviously using a pneumatic tool. If you don't have one, that is totally fine. You don't need to worry about it. Any kind of wrench or socket will do just fine. 2 recommendations here. 1, make sure you get every single one of them out. It is possible, especially if it's not up in the air, you might miss one, especially one all the way forward or all the way back. There's nothing worse than trying to take this thing off and one of the bolts is getting hung up. 2, and even more important, make sure you don't leave any of them laying on the ground right there. It's too easy to run one of these bolts over and puncture a tire, cause an issue, things like that. Just lose one. You don't want to do that. So just make sure that you're either putting them directly into a Ziploc bag as you go, or you're doing something else with them that you're used to doing. Holding them in your hand, setting them. And I use a little tray, and I usually put all the bolts and nuts and all that into a little tray, separate into each thing, or I'll use a Ziploc bag. I would highly recommend that. In this situation, it's not an area where you want to lose a bolt and then have to buy a new tire. I think we all know how expensive those tires are. All right, so this next portion, we're actually going to be removing the bolts from the upper portion of the sill. Now you've got this one back here in the blue area, and then you're going to have the 3 silver ones. And when I say silver ones, I mean on a silver plate that says Viper. Now there is one additional one I did not show in the video. It is more towards the door jamb. It's the exact same kind, and you can use a power tool, hand tool, doesn't matter. You can get in there with a Phillips head and take it off, no problem. One thing I would recommend when you go to actually pull the sill off, that weather stripping right there, that panel does go up into that weather stripping. So either pull up on the weather stripping a little bit. You may have to pull the kick panel off. If you do, it's really easy, snaps on, snaps off. Or if you can just kind of pull up on the weather stripping. Now from here, you just go up to the front where it's being held on by those 2 bolts that we just loosened, didn't take all the way out, and then you just slide it out towards you. Be careful here. It is a little unruly. It may want to try and it'll feel like it's like rolling on you, and then that's what that tape is there for. It'll keep it from getting marred up or scratched or anything like that if you have any kind of whoopsies with it. The exhaust heat shielding is going to fall, totally okay, no big deal. And just set it over to the side and you're good to go. Now from here, we're actually going to loosen up that T25 bolt that I told you earlier not to mess with. It's at this point with the sill gone, it's super easy. You can get up there with a power tool, you can get up there with a hand tool. It's just the one bolt. It's a little bit of an angle, shouldn't be a problem. You just get up there and loosen it up. Now once you do that, what you're going to want to do, and as you can see, the fin moves, but it's again still not ready to come out. What I personally recommend is to take that panel off, that blue panel, and you're going to see me do that here in a minute. There is I believe it's a 12 millimeter bolt on the backside, which, by the way, my apologies, you're also going to need 12 millimeter. But all you need to do to take this panel off is use the T25. There's 3 bolts, and you're gonna take those off. Now that front one right there is a little bit of an angle. It can be a little tricky to get to. Sometimes I find it's easier to do it by hand, and sometimes I find it's easier to use like an adjustable extension and just do it that way. But either way, it'll come right off, won't be a problem, and at that point you can remove the panel. Now the panel actually slides into the fin. It's got like 3 locking sections that lock in. It's not bolted in, it's not screwed in, nothing like that. You don't need to go searching for bolts or screws, they're not there. You basically just need to kind of angle it out as you see me do there, and then the whole panel itself will pretty much lift up and away. Now once you've done that, you can get back there to that nut. Now again, do not remove the nut. You don't need to. You just need to loosen it. Once you loosen that nut up enough, basically the entire fin itself will just slide out. So at that point, you're pretty much finished doing all the disassembly. The fin is out, everything is off, and you're good to go ahead and start putting the next one in. And that's where we're going to get to right now, is installation. Alright, so installation is exactly what you think it's going to be. It's exactly what you just did, except in reverse. So the Palm Customs carbon fiber fin is meant to be an exact OEM replacement. So make sure you have all the bolts, make sure that you didn't take the nut all the way out, and you're going to reuse the exact same things. So the very first thing you're going to do is install the T25 in the top. Now, I would recommend just kind of hand tightening this and then doing the bolt in the back. I'm sorry, the nut in the back, tightening that down and then retightening the T25. It'll just make life a little bit easier for you to make sure alignment. Now, as you're doing that, and you'll see me here in a minute, go open the door and look in there. And that's because you want to make sure that everything is lined up on that side as well. Basically, if you tighten the 2 front pieces up first, you don't make sure the door jamb part is lined up, of course you could have issues to where you have to go back there and loosen those 2 up. So good rule of thumb, do it by hand, and then check everything, check the door jamb, go back and retighten it. Now, this is something you've done 20 times. You can pretty much do it, you know, you're pretty much good to go the first time. But still, better safe than sorry. As you see me do here, I'm still checking. As a matter of fact, make sure you have a light with you. There's not much light down there in that door jamb. So you see me grab the light, go down there. I'm going to make sure that everything is lined up, that and again, it's not a bolt hole. It's an opening basically where a bolt will hold it down. So not only that T25 at the top front is actually a hole where you have to, you know, line up. Everything else is pretty well adjustable. Just making sure all the fitment is right and everything like that. So obviously, you know, that turned out good. That looked good. So I went ahead and grabbed the panel. And now we're going to reinstall that panel. Now what you want to do is you want to slide that panel onto the new fin. And again, it's a locking piece. So it's got 3 parts that lock into it. Again, no bolts, no screws. It's just going to lock in there. And then you're going to put it up against, and you're going to use the T25. You're going to put those 3 T25 screws back in. Now, again, you can do it by a hand tool. You can do it with a power tool. I recommend a power tool. Obviously, if you're using a power tool, just make sure you're using one that isn't going to, you know, jump on you and hit the car. That's never good. Okay, so from here, those T25s are bolted up. You're going to go ahead, open the door, and now it's time to reinstall the sill. So grab the sill, make sure you put the heat shield back into it, and it's probably easier to bring them both over, put the heat shield into it there, and then carry it over, going underneath the door. It's a lot easier doing it that way than trying to put the heat shield in it wherever you're at, hold on to it, fiddle with it as you go. It's a pain. So just do that when you're closer to the car and you've got the part under the door. All right, now you're gonna basically line up the front where those 2 nuts are, those where that you've loosened to slide the piece back in. Now, little tip here, that front bolt, that front nut is kind of a pain to get to. So only loosen that up. Make sure it's only loosened as much as you need it to slide in there. The back one, you can open it up pretty much as you need. The front one, I would keep that thing as thin as possible. Okay, so from here, once you get that part lined up, and again, you just line it up, do not tighten those bolts down. You want to keep them a little bit loose, just so when you go around to the inside of the car, you've got some play. You know, you're able to move it around, and don't forget the weather stripping. You need to make sure you pull up on that weather stripping and put that piece all the way against the jamb as it should be. All right, everyone, so pretty much from there you are finished. The rest of it is just putting the bolts back in, the top bolts. Make sure you do all the 10 mils. Make sure you do the one on the back, and then tighten up the 2 bolts that are actually in that cubby right there, the sill. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and of course if you have any questions, feel free to email us or call us, and absolutely go out there and enjoy those brand new Palm Custom limited edition carbon fiber fins for your awesome Viper.
All right, guys, so that was pretty easy. I'd say all in all the time is maybe 30-40 minutes. As you can tell, just some basic hand tools on the ground, super easy, don't need a lift, don't need anything else. They look absolutely ridiculous. And as a lot of you guys know, we weighed them out and they're about 20% of weight of the stock one. Obviously, just those pieces don't make a massive difference, but when you get the entire set, you know, all 6 sets, that's going to be a massive difference, especially when it comes to those last 3 or 4 sets. It's a big deal. All right, guys, so I think that's about it for the how-to. Make sure to check us out on Facebook and on YouTube, which I guess if you're watching this, you are checking us out on YouTube. But we will be posting up the pictures and videos for set number 3 tomorrow, which is the 15th, October 15th, I believe. And that's going to include, actually, if you're watching this, you get a little sneak peek here at the end. It's going to include basically this entire side sill part, this panel right here, and the panel inside, which is that silver panel on the Gen 3 for that say Viper, and I say Gen 3. Early Gen 3s, I don't believe had a silver panel, but now the later Gen 3s and the Gen 4s do. That install will probably be done on the ACR. So they're both going to get it, but we'll do that install video on the ACR. All right, guys. Well, I think that's about it. This is Mark, and I am DONE done. Peace.